Well, welcome to another episode of OTA on the Air. My guest with me this time is Dr. Bill Kanasky, who is a courtroom scientist. So, Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I've been looking forward to this. And you need to come on my show. We have to reciprocity, right? Reciprocity.
We'll trade. We'll do a trade out. I like those.
Absolutely.
I like those. So, I guess tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I wish that was I don't have that good elevator speech. When I have friends and even extended family members like, what do you do? It's like, oh man, this is a long story. So by training, I'm a clinical neuropsychologist. So I literally was going down the academia / healthcare track. I have over 20,000 hours of patient care experience in my background. And then I met somebody who was working in litigation that had the same background as me. I couldn't figure it out, and they told me what they did, and I fell in love with it. So essentially what it is, it's applying the principles of clinical neuropsychology in litigation. And we really do that in two ways. Is number one, we do an extraordinary amount of witness preparation from the psychological perspective in many industries, particularly transportation, with drivers, safety directors, corporate representatives, to get them mentally ready for testimony. And then the other end of it, we study jury decision-making behavior. As you know, the nuclear verdict topic is very, very popular in many industries, particularly transportation. And so we run research projects in various venues around the country where there's active litigation to figure out, okay, what's causing these nuclear verdicts? What factors are causing jurors to go crazy in the deliberation room and be writing zeros on the back of these checks? And so it's a pretty interesting career, and it's because of several factors going on. I don't think I am going to have to worry about any type of job slowdown anytime soon. It's crazy.
So I guess talk to us a little bit about what, a company hires you to come in to get them prepped for a case. I guess what can they expect? What does that process look like?
Well, there's two processes. Let's start with the bad news first. I like starting with bad news first and ending, you end on something positive, right? So here's the bad news, is that roughly half of the time I am being called in, or my colleagues are being called in, let's just say in the middle of the fourth quarter of the game, right? Or it's actually baseball playoffs are going on right now, in the middle of the eighth inning, they're going like this, calling us in from the bullpen, but we haven't had any chance to play in that game up to that point. That's a really tough position to be in, because so much is set in stone. And at that point, we come in, typically we'll try to do some jury research in the venue to help the client understand their true, level of exposure, what the odds are as far as, liability and causation, things like that, so that they can make good decisions. Do I go to trial? Do I resolve this case? And then obviously prepare the key witnesses for trial. I'm going to tell you this right now. That is not the way I like to do things. I like to be the starting pitcher, right? I like to get involved in the game in the first quarter and get involved early. So what we preach to our clients is call us early. Call us early. Let us get involved, collaborate with your legal team. We can do a lot of things very early that can save a ton of money and headaches on the back end. And so the proper way to do this, and this is probably our number one message that we're sending to this industry amongst others, is that you don't have to sit there and get beat up by the plaintiff's bar. You can take the fight to them the moment the bell rings, right? But what the defense, the insurance defense industry commonly does is they sit back and they take punches for 6 rounds. And then in round 7, okay, well, now I'm going to fight. That's no way to win a fight. So what we advocate is come out swinging, do your jury research early, get a really good law firm involved early, prepare witnesses early for deposition. Those depositions make or break your case. And then at that point, when you get through that discovery process and you look at the scoreboard, you're not down 5 touchdowns, right? Maybe it's tied, which is great. Maybe you're winning, but really the ultimate way that we like to help our clients get involved early, make a difference early, and that saves an incredible, I mean, absolutely astounding amount of money on the back end. And I think really psychologically influences the entire process. You know, one of the problems you have right now, because every company's scared of nuclear verdicts, is I have what I call it the ATM machine reputation. There's a company that's one of my clients that shall go unnamed. I'm not going to say who they are. They have not tried a case in 2 years because they're terrified of nuclear verdicts. So the plaintiff's bar has labeled them an ATM machine defendant. You know what that means, right? You go to the ATM, bum, 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 and they're giving you money. I think that's the last thing anybody really wants or needs. And by being very aggressive early, you have a reputation now of, wow, you know, this guy's going to punch me in the face in the first round, not wait till round 7.
So I guess one of the neat things that I think that you do is you do basically mock juries, like focus group juries. I guess, tell us what the benefits of that process is for your clients.
Well, number one, your adversary, that's one of their first steps. So look, if you want to really learn something, study your enemy. All right. Study your enemy. How do they do things? One of the first things they do is do the mock jury research, because they have to determine, do I have a winner? Do I have a loser? Because I have to put a lot of work into this case. Defense is different. They need to find out whether they have a winner or loser. And the sooner you do that, imagine the amount of leverage that you have. So for example, if you do mock jury research and you do it right before your trial and you figure out, wow, we're going to get hammered, there's no time to do anything about that. But if you did that before mediation and got the same result, you could make a lot, better decisions, more effective decisions to probably get that case resolved. So the earlier that you can discover, okay, what are my true strengths and weaknesses? Number one, not what do I think they are, right? No hunches, no gut. No, what are my true strengths and weaknesses at the jury level? The jurors need to tell you, not your gut feelings, right? And then number two, if this case goes poorly, what's the damages range I'm looking at? All right. Now, these are two very important questions that rarely get accurately answered in-house, right? You put an in-house counsel or a claim specialist, and then you combine them with the trial attorney, and they sit down and talk, what do you think this case is worth? They're just pulling stuff out of where. No one knows what it's truly worth. So getting that information early makes you make better decisions on the file. And I mean, if you know you're gonna have a nuclear verdict, right? If you knew that 2 years before your trial date, I think you'd handle that case a little differently now, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, and I think that one of the neat parts is that some of the videos that I saw, or some of the conversations, were the strategy going into the defense. I mean, you talked about one where it was either they did live testimony or they read the testimony in, and the difference between the two verdicts was unbelievable. So I mean, there's some great value in that piece to be able to see that. So let's talk a little bit about nuclear verdicts. It's a hot topic in the trucking industry. We just had a $900 million verdict handed down to 2 trucking companies that don't even exist, or their owners are nowhere to be found, which probably played into that. But I guess, one of the things that you had presented when we first met was why the reasonings people believe nuclear verdicts are the way they are not necessarily the truth. So I guess talk to us a little bit about, the perception of nuclear verdicts and really what the reality of nuclear verdicts are. Well,
if you Google, and I encourage your audience to do this, if you Google nuclear verdicts, I will pop up. An attorney named Bob Tyson out of San Diego will pop up, because he and I are really the only ones really hitting this head on. and are publishing a lot and are speaking a lot. And Bob and I have spoken together several times. Those are the two people you're going to find from the reality of this situation. Every other article are pretty much journalists or maybe some claims people in the insurance industry that are really guessing on what's causing nuclear verdicts. They have zero research background. They don't study juries. They're just throwing it out there. And they've come up with this term called social inflation, which I deeply, as a scientist, deeply disagree with. I mean, it absolutely makes me insane. I mean, the words they just make me cringe, because what the insurance industry has come up with this, the defense industry, and they wanted to rationalize, okay? Psychology 101, rationalization, right? Something really bad's going on, and you just kind of come up with a pretty convenient excuse to explain it away. It's a very human defense mechanism, right? See, there's your clinical psychology for the day. And so what the insurance defense industry says, wow, these jurors are crazy, man. I mean, they don't understand money. Social media is making them nuts. They distrust companies. What? This is a juror problem. And I came out and said, no, it's not. This is a you problem. This is a look in the mirror problem. And so we've identified, and we published a paper in DRI last year, and this is the paper that you'll find on our website and on DRI website and all over, is really the true causes of nuclear. We know it's not the jurors' fault. So stop blaming the jurors. There's 5 reasons for nuclear verdicts. And you saw these when I spoke at the group out in Las Vegas the other week. Number 1, poor witness performance. Jury doesn't like witness, they're going to hammer you. All right. You have witnesses that come across as arrogant, witnesses that come across like they don't care, witnesses that don't have any emotional poise, they lose their professionalism, right? Or on the other end of it, witnesses that are scared to death. Okay. They're not believable. And most of your case is going to get this shot by the jury because of the perception of the witnesses. Okay, we know that. We've been studying this for a long time. Number 2, egregious conduct. Yeah, I mean, if the plaintiff puts on a case and says, yeah, this driver, was on methamphetamine, but stopped by the tavern, had 17 Miller Lights, and then got behind the wheel and got on the road and crashed into a family of 4 and killed them, that's going to be a nuclear verdict. I'm sorry. And that's not the jury's fault. Those are really, really bad facts. Right. And so there are cases out there. We talked about the McDonald's coffee spill case, where the facts were really, really bad and got jurors angry, but the company refused to settle. So when you got bad facts, and that's why the jury research is so important, you got to know when to say, you know what, we screwed up, and pay the piper, because if you go all the way to the end with the losing case, you're going to get smoked, period. Right? So you got bad witnesses, bad, really, really bad facts, bad venues. There are some venues out there that are really dangerous. I don't care how good of a case you have, your odds of winning are very low, because the jury pool is already pre-wired to be pro-plaintiff. And so are most of the judges, which puts you in a really, really bad spot. And so we talked about, areas like, Philadelphia, Memphis, Detroit, Miami, Los Angeles. I mean, there's a lot of East St. Louis. I mean, there's some places out there where it's pretty terrifying to try a case if you're defendant. And again, if you misread that or don't do your homework, you're going to put yourself in the position to get nailed when that's probably avoidable, or you can try to change that venue. 4th is jury selection being done in a very weak process. Think about, as a clinical neuropsychologist, my job is to assess and modify human behavior, right? The assessment part being key. Most trial attorneys pick jurors based on how they like them. Like, hey, I like this guy. It's like, whoa, time out. That's not really a scientific. We know the factors. We know the traits. We're not talking demographics. A lot of people think demographics are predictive of outcome. They're really not. You start to break down nuclear verdicts versus defense wins. Guess what these two groups look like? The same.
Right.
On paper, they're the same. Let me say it one more time. I'm recording a podcast right after this, one of mine. I have to bring this up. They're the same on paper. Where they're different is up here. And those are the types of questions that the attorneys need assistance from us with. You have to ask these questions because you really need to assess what are these jurors' attitudes? What are their belief systems? What are their emotional status, right? And you're not going to see that demographically. Someone's income, someone's race, someone's sex doesn't tell you how they make decisions.
Right.
And so having a very poor jury selection strategy will lead to disaster. And then number 5, and this is the most controversial one, and we talked about this before the show, because no one agrees on this, but Bob Tyson puts this in his book. He'll come right out there and say the same thing, is the plaintiff's bar has put in a ton of time, energy, and money into training and becoming better attorneys, and the defense hasn't. I'm just like, listen, you think Tom Brady just has natural talent? No, he goes through this off season, he goes through training, he goes through practice, right? And there's a reason for success, and their reason for success, one of the main reasons for nuclear, they're better attorneys. They mock try more cases. They get additional training to be better attorneys, and then when the head-to-head matchup happens in the courtroom, it's oftentimes a mismatch. So those are really the 5 reasons for nuclear verdicts that we have scientifically proven. All this other crap is just people coming up with stuff because they want something to blame and nobody wants to look in the mirror. That's the problem.
So let's talk a little bit about that 5th one. I think the industry has gotten very accustomed to hearing the term reptile theory.
Yep.
But we don't know that the industry truly understands what it is and the processes and the infrastructure behind it. So I guess walk us through what it is and then the infrastructure behind it.
Yeah, let's talk about what it's not. We have to start, and this is actually, I'm still giving reptile talks nearly 12 years later, because no one understands it. And the problem is, and boy, the reptile folks, I got to tip my hat to them. Wow, I got to tip my hat to them. They know exactly what they're doing. Brilliant marketing plan. And so what I had to do was I had to break down this theory, the reptile theory, and really expose it for what it really is. And their sales pitch was that, hey, there's a way to put on a case in front of a jury, and you're going to activate this reptile brain, right? Deep in the brainstem, these subcortical areas of the brain. And you can activate those areas of the brain. And once a juror's reptile brain is activated, they are pre-programmed to automatically protect themselves and the community around them. Meaning, if you put on a case this way, they're going to vote for the plaintiff to want to deter whatever behavior was that violated safety rules. That's the big thing, or created a needless danger or an unnecessary risk to protect the community. That's their sales pitch. That's the theory in a nutshell. Well, that's 100% false. There is no reptile brain. That's like a 40-year-old hypothesis. It's absolutely ridiculous. Okay. There's no reptile brain. That's not what's really happening. And I've read the book. I accidentally have a copy of the book, and I've broken down the entire system. And what it is, it's a system. It's a system that's marketed in a neuroscientific gift wrapping of sorts. But what it really is, it's a brilliant and effective plan to outmaneuver the defense bar and the insurance defense industry. And it lays it all out in their materials. The first thing they want to do is destroy, and I mean absolutely destroy, these defense witnesses at deposition and get it on videotape. And what they do, so really what the reptile theory is in discovery is they have a system, it's very systematic, formula of questions to manipulate the witness into agreeing that safety is the number one priority above and beyond everything else. And every single witness that's untrained says yes, 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 yes. And then the attorney, so this is the first part of the system. The second part of the system is, okay, well, let's look at what happened in this case. And then it shows that the corporate conduct in the case contradicts what they just agreed to, right? So in other words, they call them safety rules. Get the witness to agree to these 10 safety rules. Once they do that, you go right to the case facts and show how they violated whatever rules. And then you have this huge hypocrisy. Well, it works. It works. There's no reptile brain thing involved. It's a highly manipulative, very, very clever way of deposing a witness. So what we've done, thankfully, is develop the anti-reptile system to defeat this 100% of the time. We defeat it, but the witness really needs specialized training. And the good news, it's really, really working. And the plaintiffs bar is not very happy with us because they cannot push around these witnesses. And we're talking even truck drivers, safety directors, corporate reps, they're all exposed to this reptile attack in discovery. And that's the discovery part. The reptile theory at trial is more of their storytelling model. Is they want to sell that story to the jury. And if they have the deposition, this is where the deposition is so important. If they have the testimony up front, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, because they can tell the jury, listen, there's these 10 safety rules this company needs to follow. In fact, their witnesses are going to tell you that, because I'm going to call them to the stand. I deposed them already, and I'm going to show you how they violated these safety rules and put the general public and community in danger, ladies and gentlemen. And they're going to tell that story as an attack on public safety, an attack on community safety, and they're gonna pedal to the metal on that the entire trial. Whereas the non-reptile way of doing it, the old way of doing it, was coming out and say, look at all these terrible injuries. I mean, look at my client in the wheelchair. I mean, this is what he or she has to go through on a daily. I mean, here's the day in the life video. That was the old way of doing it that worked. But then once the jury pool changed, Gen X and Gen Y really saturated the jury pool. That's kind of why and how the reptile theory came about, because the old way wasn't working anymore. The new way was attack, 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 and show the jury that this is a dangerous, needlessly dangerous company that's putting the general public and community, all of us, at risk. And if you don't know how to, well, first of all, if if all your witnesses agree to that, you've already lost the case. But if you don't know how to counteract that, to defeat that, you're going to lose. So what we've done at Courtroom Sciences, I've put a decade into this already, is developing systems in discovery, jury selection systems, and trial tactics to completely defeat this thing. And we've been highly, highly successful.
Yeah, and I was just spoke at the Missouri Trucking Association's annual conference, and I asked the question when we were talking about this is, how many of you believe that safety is your top priority? And I was shocked at the number of hands that went up. And I thought, and then I said to him, I'm like, y'all just lost the case. I mean,
and they don't get it. They don't. Yeah. They still don't. This is. I mean, I'm not joking here. Pushing 500 reptile talks in some way, shape, or form across this country, people still don't get it. I'm absolutely. This started in 2009. We're approaching 2022, and just like you did, you stand up in front of the audience. It's still not getting enough respect. It's still not getting enough education. So, as you know, one of the things we're trying to do and hooking up with states like yours and other states is to actually get people educated. It's it's shocking how the lack of, particularly with this theory and how much damage it's done. You would think everybody in the industry would really know the nuts and bolts of it, and they don't. And I think it's actually pretty confusing. Actually, I think it's a really sophisticated, complicated topic. But I think the number one step, which we've already started it. We started it in Nevada a couple weeks ago, is we have to educate not just attorneys and we have to educate the industry on what this really, really is. And it takes all day to explain it because it is really, really complicated. Because the other thing I've seen is the people that have heard of it, right? So the other question, the next time you talk, ask this question. How many people have heard of reptile theory? Raise their hand. What is reptile theory? I guarantee you they define it wrong.
Right.
They have misinterpreted it and they don't really, really understand it. So I think with education and knowledge comes power for the industry. And what the plaintiffs bar is doing, by the way, they know that the transportation industry, amongst others, have still not figured this out. So there's, it's like in football, you run that same play until the defense adjusts. Yet the industry as a whole hasn't figured it out. And the first step's education, and that's really what we're trying to push right now. So everybody knows what reptile theory is, what it is, what it's not. And so going forward, it's more of a cultural change internally that everybody's on the same page. Because right now they're not.
So let's talk a little bit about that training. I guess, what does that day look like? What can people who attend expect to learn?
Well, we have it in several stages, and everybody has different schedules. And so we have several chapters of the training, and some of the folks we've talked to said, hey, come in and just do it all at once, right? And others have said, hey, can you break it up over the year during some of these pre-planned meetings? But what we like to do, I think the introductory part is pretty much what you saw a couple weeks ago, is to really break down the nuclear verdict talk. Here's what's going on here, right? Here's what we know, okay? And here's what's kind of the myth. Here's exactly what's going on. Number one, that's a really good place to start to figure out kind of where are we at right now and what are these causes of all these nuclear verdicts and problems. Then from there, get into the specifics of those causes. Get into reptile theory. So we're going to take people through where it came from, where it was, where it's at, where it's going, and really break it down scientifically. So you have a really deep understanding, really the blueprint of what the reptile theory is. And that takes some time because that's across the entire, life cycle of the litigation. And beyond that, the other thing that we're doing, kind of like an education phase and then a training phase. The education phase is really, again, more didactic, getting the actual, here's what's going on, the ins and outs of reptile theory, gaining that knowledge to know what's really happening. The training phase, which there's two phases. We have pre-litigation and litigation. This is where we're coming in more at a training level to take people who will likely have to testify in these cases and start working with them immediately. Get them trained on reptile theory. I can educate anybody on reptile theory, but to train you, it's a different program because you have to go through practice questions. I have to really outline, here's what these questions are going to look like. Here's what your brain wants to do, but we can't do that. We have to do this. And so that's a lot of one-on-one, training, which can start immediately. You know who's going to get deposed in your company, right? I mean, who the key people are. Get started now. Don't wait. And then the third phase is really the litigate. That's really the majority of what we're doing is, once a case is filed, and depositions are set, discovery's open. A lot of clients are calling us, recognizing, hey, we need help. We need our people ready because we know what our adversary is going to do and we want them ready. So there's a lot to do and there's a ton of resources out there. And we'll work with everybody and anybody to meet their needs because we want you guys to win.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part is setting yourself up early for success. And I think that's the thing is like you said, 50% of your cases come in when you're walking into the ninth inning and you're expected to hit a grand slam home run
It's
to win.
impossible.
It's
It's
impossible.
impossible.
And yeah, so I mean the interesting part is that being able to educate yourself on this, much like the plaintiff's bar does. And I think that's probably one of the most glaring things that should scare the crap out of everybody is the plaintiff's bar does an amazing job of sharing
Yep,
information with each other, whereas the defense bar does not. And I think that
exactly.
this is that opportunity. I guess, what do you envision from the trucking industry's perspective is how that communication goes?
Yeah, and so and we kind of stumbled upon this is, and again, this will be a comment that's going to irk a couple people, but that's just my personality and who I am. I'll lay it at. The best way to get around this is just to skip over the defense bar. Skip them over. There are plenty of people besides defense attorneys that need to communicate this information, right?
Right.
If these defense attorneys don't want to help each other, you're never going to force them to. They're naturally competitive. I get it. I think it hurts in any industry. By the way, it's with all industries. Happens in healthcare products. None of these defense guys want to talk and help each other. However, beyond them, there are other people in the industry that can share information, right? And so, whether it be company to company, claims person to claims person, organization to organization, there's many ways to disseminate and share information. And that's really what's going to happen here going forward. And if the plaintiff attorneys want to jump in the sandbox and play, which they should, they're more than welcome. But if they want to continue to just compete with each other, not share information, I think the industry has essentially said enough is enough. We don't want to be placed behind the 8 ball anymore. And so we need to create some ways to share information, which if you want to be a part of, great. And if you don't, okay, but we're still going to do it. I think that's what's going to happen here. It's going to be an evolution of information sharing. That's really it's a pioneering effort. And I do think it's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the biggest challenges, and we talked a little bit about this in Vegas, is the insurance companies are so scared to go to trial. They're so scared to trust in the preparation of their companies that they will not end up in a nuclear verdict or some bad verdict that they'll just willing to settle, I guess. So what are some of the things that the industry can do to make sure that we're pushing to assure that the insurance companies that we're prepared and ready to take this on?
I mean, the insurance companies are the number one barrier here. That's a fact. Again,
No.
I am gonna get in trouble for, but I say it on my own podcast, and I go through like my Bill Burr rants on it. It's a fact. I can't tell you how many companies and attorneys call me saying, I really want to use I really want to do this mock trial. I really want to do this witness prep, and the insurance company won't approve it. Well, what is it? Okay, so what's the motivation of the insurance? Don't tell me the motivation is winning at that point.
Right.
If an insurance company that, by the way, these are billion-dollar companies, which, by the way, we all bailed out in 2008. That's why I have zero sympathy for the insurance industry. We, the Americans, bailed all them out in 2008, 2009, are now telling me, well, we can't afford that mock trial. Really? Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. That's completely false. They have plenty of money. Number one. Number two, they're not interested in winning. They're not, because if they were, right, you would see the behaviors associated with that. This is more of a business model they're following, which really has nothing to do with winning. They want this balancing act of minimizing expenses, right? And at the same time, minimizing exposure, which, by the way, is like oil and water. These two things don't mix. Okay. It's like, I like to feel like, God, I really want to get in shape and put on some muscle mass. I just don't like lifting weights.
Right.
I'm like, it's not going to happen. And so you have two problems here, and that is exactly what the defense or the plaintiff's bar has figured out. And so they fully take advantage of that, knowing that, now wait a second, It's like when the Yankees play the Orioles, right? Look at those two payrolls. It's just it's not a fair fight. And that's really what's going on here. Now, that being said, there are corporations out there that have SIRs, maybe up to $5 million, some 10, some 15. That it's, in other words, the SIR that, they're paying the first 5 million, or they're paying the first 10 or 15. Completely different motivation. I've seen a very different cooperation with those folks because it's their money on the line. I mean, trust me, the claim specialist, right, over at AIG, sitting behind a desk in a cubicle, okay, it's not her money. It's not. Right. But if you're the in-house counsel at Corporation ABC and you have a $5 million SIR, that's your money. It's a very, very different level of quiet. So those folks come out wanting to be aggressive. They want to win. I rarely have a problem there. It's really when you have an insurance company saying, can't we just get rid of this case? That's your problem.
Well, I think as insurance rates continue to go up, that companies are going to be taking on more deductible liability, higher deductibles, to be able to offset that additional expense. And then there again, it increases their exposure moving forward.
It's a mess.
It is. Well, so you are presenting in Vegas here, November 9th?
November 9th in Las. I feel like an entertainer now. I'll be in Las Vegas November 9th and 10th.
Right.
Off to read now. November 9th. We're going to have an all day talk. We're going to talk a lot of reptile, educate a lot about this weaponry that's available to beat the bad guys. And yeah, it's going to be an all day educational and training session because, like I said, the system we're going up against is a pretty damn organized and effective winning system. Yeah. So to beat that, you have to come up with something just as organized, just as complicated, and just as successful. And that's what we've done. So that'll be a long day, but a very informative day. And then after that, we hope to work with more specific companies to start hopefully working with some of their key corporate representatives, safety directors, getting them ready now. I mean, when it comes to litigation, as you know, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And to be ready, the sooner you're ready, the better off your chances are of success. There's no reason to delay with that. So I think we're really heading in the right direction.
Well, and for our listeners as well, we are in the process right now of planning to bring that program here to Ohio or the surrounding states. In fact, that's what I'm trying to put together right now is a conglomeration of the surrounding states to bring that here to be able to get this going and get it throughout the industry so that we can do better and win some of these cases and kind of put this thing to bed and hopefully not end ourselves in a situation where we're almost uninsurable because of the court cases that are out there. So
yep.
Dr. Kanasky, thank you so much for being with us and appreciate your candor and your defense of the industry and making sure that we understand what we're getting ourselves involved in.
Happy to be here. So glad. If anybody has questions, go to CSI courtroomsciences.com or just Google me, Bill Kanasky, go on LinkedIn. If you can't find me, you have a serious problem. I'm pretty easy to find.
Well, great. Thank you so much. And we'll sign off for this episode.
Take care.
Thanks.